The year of 1888 was not a good time to be a prostitute in the city of Whitechapel, which is a district of London, England, but then again, is there ever really a good time to be one? This particular year was particularly cruel to the women who worked the streets. Not only did they have to deal with a very poor and impoverished city that was absolutely filthy at the time, they also had to fight for every bit of bread they could scrounge for because their customers were very poor and had little to no money. It was a very bleak, hard time to be a worker of the night. By the middle of the 19th century, Britain had become hugely overpopulated with refugees from Ireland. They also had a large number of Jewish refugees fleeing pogroms in Tsarist Russia. The area in and around Whitechapel became extremely overpopulated, which caused finding jobs, housing and food very difficult. Over half the children who was born during this time died before their 5th birthday. Many women who were otherwise just housewives or working-class women had no other choice but to turn to prostitution in order to survive, or else they would have to let their families become homeless and sometimes even literally starve to death. As if these poor women didn't have enough stress in their lives to deal with, an unknown maniac would begin butchering them starting on April the 3rd of 1888 to November the 9th. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he disappeared, never to be heard from again. There were many suspects, but to this very day, no one knows the true identity of who Jack the Ripper truly was. In the early morning hours around 3:30 a.m. on August the 31st of 1888, the body of Marianne Nichols was discovered. She was found by her friend and flatmate, Emily Holland, whom had just seen Marianne only an hour before alive and well. Her throat was severed by 2 deep cuts, one of which completely severed all the tissue down to the vertebrae. She had been stabbed with a very sharp knife in her female areas twice, and the lower part of her abdomen was partly ripped open by a deep, jagged wound, causing her insides to fall out. The following week on September 8th of 1888, the body of Annie Chapman was discovered at around 6 a.m. that morning, just outside the steps of 29 Hanbury Street. Just like Marianne Nichols, the throat was severed by 2 deep cuts. Her abdomen had been cut entirely open, with a section of the flesh from her stomach being placed upon her left shoulder, and another section of skin and flesh, plus her small intestines, was removed and placed above her right shoulder. Chapman's autopsy also revealed that her uterus and sections of her bladder and vagina had been removed. A woman who was nearby named Elizabeth Long told police that she had seen Miss Chapman only minutes before her murder in the company of a dark-haired man, wearing a brown deerstalker hat and dark overcoat. She described him as being of a shabby genteel appearance. The witness heard the man ask Chapman the question, "Will you?" To which Chapman replied, "Yes." Just moments later, she was dead. The next 2 murders came on the same day, at or about the same time. Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Edius were both killed in the early morning hours of Sunday, the 30th of September, 1888. Stride's body was discovered at approximately 1 a.m. in Dutfield's Yard, off Berner Street, which is now Henriquez Street in Whitechapel. She too had her throat slit by a large 6-inch gash, which severed her left carotid artery and her trachea. The fact that she had no other injuries left investigators thinking that the killer had probably been interrupted during the murder and had to flee in order to keep from getting caught. Edius's body was found in Mitre Square in the City of London not very long after the discovery of the Elizabeth Stride's body. She too, like some of the earlier cases, was a gruesome sight. She had her throat slit, as well as her abdomen having been ripped open by a long, deep and jagged wound. Her intestines had been placed over her right shoulder, just like the previous case of Annie Chapman. One of her kidneys as well as her uterus was both removed. Her nose was also severed, and she had several cuts on her face, and was even stabbed in the eyes. She even had strange triangles carved in her cheeks, and parts of her ear was missing, which was later found on her clothing. A portion of Edius's bloodied apron was found at the entrance to a tenement in Golston Street, Whitechapel. At 2:55 a.m. written in chalk near the bloody fabric was the phrase, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." It appeared that whoever Jack the Ripper was, he was trying to pin the murders on the Jewish community. Police Commissioner Charles Warren feared that the graffiti may cause anti-Semitic riots and ordered the writing washed away before dawn. The final known victim of the Ripper was a lady by the name of Mary Jane Kelly. Kelly was discovered lying on the bed in the single room where she lived at 13 Miller's Court, off Dorset Street, Spitalfields, at 10:45 a.m. on Friday, November 9, 1888. Her face had been hacked beyond all recognition. Her head was nearly severed and her insides was all removed. Her uterus, kidneys and breast was placed beneath her head, sections of her stomach, as well as her thigh was placed on a nearby table and her heart was even missing. It was a bloody and horrific scene indeed. All 5 of the murders had a few things in common, aside from their grisly nature. They had all been performed in the late night, or early morning before daylight came. All of them were either on or near a weekend, and almost always they at the end of a month, or just over by no more than a week. Another thing that was interesting was the fact that each murder became more and more gruesome as they progressed, as if the killer's rage was building as he went instead of subsiding. The way in which some of the organs were removed also showed some level of medical skill, which led them to believe that they may have a mad doctor or surgeon as a suspect. The area around Whitechapel had been in decline for some time, and murders was nothing new, but with the extreme gruesomeness of the last 5 murders, the citizens in and around Whitechapel had had enough. They decided to form a crime watch of their own, because they believed that the police was not doing enough to catch the insane madman who was stalking their streets at night. They decided to form the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Mainly it was to catch the killer and protect the citizens of the area, but it was also because the publicity of the murders was causing even more of a hardship on the local community than they could afford. During the course of the investigation, several letters came in, but 3 were believed to come from the Ripper himself. The most famous of the 3 was the From Hell letter. The letter was sent to George Lusk, who was the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. It read, "From Hell. Mr. Lusk. Sir, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you, tother piece I fried, and ate it was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out if you only wait a while longer. Signed, Catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk." The letter was full of spelling errors. Whether it was unintentional or not is unknown. Either way, there were many suspects who were investigated, but no one was ever arrested nor convicted of the Whitechapel murders. Whoever it was got away. The reason he stopped is a mystery to this day. Was he arrested for another crime so he couldn't kill again? Was he killed or died in another way? Maybe he moved away or changed his style of killing. We'll probably never know. As always, if you like this story, please consider giving us a huge thumbs up to help us be seen by a larger audience. Share our videos with your friends and on social media, and don't forget to check out our site. We appreciate each and every one of you who clicks on our videos. Thank you from all of us here at GraveyardDance.com.